Assign based on an agent's skill with QAssign. We want the case to go to the most appropriate agent based on the customer's language. On case, we have a field called primary language. We want to be able to assign based on this field. To do this, we're going to use an object within QAssign called user attributes. User attributes are one-to-one with user and allow us to extend the user and have fields or attributes associated to particular users. Here I'm creating a custom tab so that user attributes can be added to the application of your choice within Salesforce. Here I'm just adding the tab to Sales, Service and the QAssign application, but you can add it to whichever applications you wish. We can now add this additional tab onto our navigation, so we can then go to this tab and create records. At the moment, we have just the basic fields on this object, but we need to add a couple more fields. Here we're going to add a language field to the user attribute object, which we can then set on a per user basis and then use for selection and assignment. We're going to create a pick list of a few sample languages, and these would ideally match the list of languages available on the primary language on the case object. By just saving through the object, just to save time, we're not actually going to specifically choose profiles. Now that we have this field on the user attributes, we can actually list this on the list view, and also when we add new records, we can set this value. We need now just to add in 2 records, one for each of our users that might be assigned records. Here we're going to create a record for Gillian. We're going to associate it with her user, and we're going to say what language cases of that type can be handled by Gillian. Here we're doing one for Thomas. I'm going to link that to Thomas's own user. And again, choose a language at which he is most skilled. Now that we users have the language assigned to them, we can actually use these within the QAssign rules. Here we're going to permission sets in setup and cloning the QAssign user permission set so that we can add access to the user attribute object, as this is not a standard custom object which is included in the permission sets by default. So here we're just extending the QAssign user permission set, and we're just going to add access to the user attribute object and the new language field that we added. Now that we have our clone permission set, we can go to the user attributes object and check the permissions are as required, setting the visibility of the tab, the records and the fields. We are then going to assign Gillian and Thomas to the permission set so that they have access based on what we've just defined. We then need to remove them from the original standard permission set, as that one is no longer required. We can now go back to the user attributes records that we added earlier. And now that the permission sets have been assigned, we can change the owner of these records to be the actual user they're related to. We now have the user attribute records with the right details on them and the appropriate owners. In our assignment group, we have an existing assignment group that we may have created earlier, which we now want to amend to be skills based. We're just tweaking the description to include the fact that we're going to be using a skills based selection of the assignees. We can now save the assignment group. Now we're going to add a member matching rule, which is effectively deciding which members of the assignment group we would like to choose for assignment. So here we're going to match a skill. So we're going to match the language, or primary language on the case, to the user attribute language that is against a particular user. And this is based on the user attribute owner ID. So if we find a match of the primary language of the case to a language on the user attribute record, that's the user that then can be assigned this particular case. This means that we've found the most appropriate agent who's got a language skill equivalent to the primary language on the case. These example cases have a primary language of English and therefore should be assigned to the agent who has a skill of English language. Turn on QAssign. Depending on the scheduler frequency, it will take up to this time to assign records. In this case, it's approximately a minute. We can now see that these 3 records have been assigned, and they've been assigned to the Gillian user, who is the user with the English language on their user attribute.